AT&T Digital Cable.
Movies.
The Independent Film Channel presents more films made outside of Hollywood, so you get more unconventional stories and characters, uncut and commercial-free. And best of all, you get it right through the cable you already have.
See something different tonight. Watch the Independent Film Channel on AT&T Digital Cable.
You're watching AT&T Cable Services.
Today is Guts and Glory Night. Bounty hunters stalk their prey on suicide missions. Then the French think the Maginot Line will keep Germany at bay on military blunders. Followed by History Undercover's revelations about the diplomats who risked it all to rescue Hitler's victims. Guts and Glory Sunday presents Suicide Missions, Military Blunders, History Undercover. Sunday night, beginning at 8 on the History Channel.
Tonight, Boston, 1942. Fire ravages the Coconut Grove nightclub.
All of a sudden, it was a blue flash, and within a minute or a minute and a half, the entire ceiling of the Melody Lounge was in flames. People groping blindly, crawling over each other, and screaming. And the only way they knew out was the way they came in, which was a revolving door. They got stacked up at the revolving door.
50 years later, new clues emerge that might explain the mystery behind this tragedy. And 16 years ago this week, a medical miracle. Dr. Robert Jarvik, the father of the artificial heart, makes a major breakthrough.
The lucky few that get transplants have a terrific result compared to what they would have otherwise. It's completely silent. They don't feel it. They can wear a battery that just weighs a couple of pounds, and they can be freely mobile and normal in life.
Later tonight, the assassin of the assassin. Tony Zoppi speaks out and reveals the mind of his friend, Jack Ruby.
Jack Ruby had a hair-trigger temper. He could explode at the drop of a hat. And when the president was shot, he took it very personally.
All this week in history.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Giselle Fernandez.
And I'm Josh Binswanger. Welcome to This Week in History.
Tonight, we'll be featuring some of history's most incredible events. They did not all happen this same year, but they did all happen this same week. This week, the week of November 24th through November 30th.
This week in 1942, the U.S. was embroiled in World War II. But the nation was stunned by a horrible disaster on the home front when fire engulfed the Coconut Grove nightclub in Boston.
Memories of that blaze have haunted the people of Boston for decades. Today, there is a new theory about what may have caused the catastrophe.
I went over to the Coconut Grove with my wife and a party of friends. I don't recall a great deal of what went on until suddenly I heard someone shout fire.
The fire had spread so quickly that it came up through the walls and the ceilings and the stairs. And everything seemed to get dark.
It was the worst nightclub fire in American history. At the Coconut Grove in Boston, Massachusetts, 492 people died in less than an hour. Officials collected charred bodies for hours. The smell of burned flesh lingered for days. But the answer to why such a terrible tragedy could have occurred was unexplained for 50 years.
People were just stunned that this could happen downtown, Theater District, Saturday night in a major East Coast city. My father was a firefighter. He had absolutely no idea of the enormity of it. Nobody, no first alarm firefighter or second alarm, third alarm firefighter, they had no concept that there were 1,000 people involved and that almost 500 of them would die.
In November of 1942, nearly every aspect of America was dominated by World War II. To take their minds off the war, people sought entertainment. Nightclubs became a haven, and one of Boston's most elegant clubs was the Coconut Grove.
On November 28th, it was more than especially jammed. It should have accommodated 600 people, and there were more than 1,000 there.
The fire started downstairs in the Melody Lounge. There, a young couple seeking privacy unscrewed a nearby light bulb. But when a busboy went to relight it, using a match to see his way, the unimaginable became a reality.
All of a sudden, it was a blue flash, and within a minute or a minute and a half, the entire ceiling of the Melody Lounge was in flames. You had people groping blindly, crawling over each other and screaming, and the only way they knew out was the way they came in, which was a revolving door. They got stacked up at the revolving door. There were 25 fully equipped and fully manned engine companies at and working at the Coconut Grove within 8 minutes. They've got hose lines on that revolving door, and they're looking through the glass and they're watching people die, and they can't do a gosh darn thing about it. My dad was working at that fire, and he told me, he said, son, they were stacked up at that door 5 feet high. He said they were pulling and pulling, and he just raised his pant leg. You could see definite traces of where people had reached out from that pile, clawing.
Paramedics brought casualties to Boston City Hospital, 1 every 11 seconds for more than an hour. In the end, very few of them would leave the hospital alive.
This was not an ordinary fire. It flashed throughout the entire structure and within 6 minutes, 7 minutes. What gave it the propulsion? What was the original accelerant? Was that blue flash connected with it?
City officials, fire marshals, and police descended on the burned-out wreckage to answer the question, how did this happen? The investigation blamed the massive death toll on gross safety violations. But the reason for why the fire spread so rapidly remained a mystery. In 1992, the mystery of the Coconut Grove began to unravel. After reading a 50th anniversary article, Walter Hixenbaugh came forward with startling new information. He speculated that a faulty cooling system had been leaking an invisible, odorless gas, which slowly filled the club. The small fire in the Melody Lounge ignited the gas, which provided a dramatic accelerant to the fire.
There was an article in the Cape Cod, quite an extensive article, about the Coconut Grove fire. And they discussed the mystery gas. Well, that's the first time I'd heard that expression, the mystery gas. It wasn't a mystery to me. Nobody was aware of what the gas was. I couldn't imagine that they hadn't known what caused the fire spread.
At the time of the fire, Hixenbaugh worked at a refrigeration repair company. A charred condenser taken from the Coconut Grove cooling system was brought to his shop to be repaired. In it was methyl chloride, a highly flammable gas used as a substitute for Freon, which was in short supply during the war. Methyl chloride was infamous for its blue flame.
We assumed that everybody else knew that it was in there. We feared the fire inspectors would know it. In investigating the fire, they would be aware of it and would be brought out. Why the inspectors never picked it up, I can't imagine why. I met with Charlie Kenny, and we discussed it in length.
And the minute he mentioned it, it flashed into my mind. And that was the start of the methyl chloride theory. It was just Walter and I.
For nearly a year, Kenny and Hicksonbaugh pored through transcripts from the grand jury trial. In the fall, they brought their theory to the fire commissioner. On September 22, 1993, more than half a century later, the Boston Fire Department officially reopened the case. Today, the definitive reason for the fire is still undetermined. But among many experts, the methyl chloride theory is considered one of the most compelling explanations for why such a tragedy could have occurred.
It was very important because it answered the question that no one else had answered. The original accelerant, the primary accelerant. This is what got it going so fast.
I'm sure that there would have been a lot less lives lost if the methyl chloride gas was not in that system.
Coconut Grove owner Barney Wilansky was found guilty of 19 criminal counts relating to the fire, including manslaughter. He was sentenced to serve 15 years in prison. The bar boy who lit the match that started the fire was exonerated by the authorities. But throughout his life, he was blamed for the tragedy and faced merciless taunting, ridicule, and threats. At one point, he had to be placed under protective custody. Next, we'll meet a warrior in the fight to prolong human life. Stay with us.
Can you guess our notable person of the week? The daughter of a shopkeeper, she's a former research chemist and tax lawyer who earned the nickname the Iron Lady in her third career before retiring 10 years ago this week. Who is this notable person? The answer when we return.
Finding your dream home and protecting it. Ensuring the future for your family. Investing for your most important goals. Millions of people build their future on the strength of Prudential. Which piece of the rock do you need today?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Could I get a glass of water, please?
Oh, sure. Anything else?
Now that you mention it, I could use a little more leg room.
American Airlines is the only airline removing seats throughout coach to give more coach passengers
How's that?
what they really want, more room.
Good.
Enjoy more room, only on American.
Excuse me.
I used to think the casino business was easy. You open your doors and people give you their money. Then Hoyle comes out with this casino game. Now we're working long hours just to keep up. What? Hoyle gives them real casino action, real blackjack, roulette, poker, and slots. What's worse, they get so good, they can clean us out. Sweet dreams. It upsets me.
Hoyle Casino, the best-selling casino game, available for PC, Game Boy Color, Dreamcast, and Mac. Rated for
If you do one thing, you've done something. Come see what a Land Rover Discovery is made of.
Sunday on the History Channel. The Nazis go on the rampage. The U.S. and other governments are too scared to help Jews, but a few brave diplomats do the right thing.
They risk their own life to save others.
Diplomats for the Damned on History Undercover, Sunday night at 10 on the History Channel, where the past comes alive.
We now return to This Week in History.
notable person of the week is former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Thatcher entered Parliament in 1959 as a member of the Tory party and soon worked her way up through party ranks. In 1975, she challenged Prime Minister Edward Heath for Tory leadership and won. Thatcher became Britain's longest-serving 20th century Prime Minister, holding office 11 years before retiring this week in 1990.
Welcome back to This Week in History. 7 years ago this week, President Clinton signed the Brady handgun control bill into law after a 7-year battle in Congress. The law is named for former Press Secretary James Brady, who was partially paralyzed during the assassination attempt on President Reagan. Most of us remember this chilling scene of Brady being gunned down by John Hinckley in 1981. The Brady bill requires citizens to undergo a 5-day waiting period before being allowed to purchase a handgun, giving local authorities the time to run a background check on individuals. Gun control remains one of the most controversial issues in American politics, and so we've chosen to make it the subject of our weekly website poll. Are you in favor of stricter gun control laws? Yes or no? Let us know by logging on to historychannel.com and casting your vote. We'll bring you the results later in the show. Giselle?
Thank you very much, Josh. In the film The Wizard of Oz, the Tin Man sings, "If I Only Had a Heart." In the movie's conclusion, it's the wizard who awards him with a mechanical heart that's actually a heart-shaped clock. But this week in 1984, the dream of having a mechanical heart was no longer the stuff of just fairy tales.
In June of 1999, when David Lancaster weds Jennifer Lehman, the couple begins their marriage knowing that their new life together might be measured not in years, but in days.
You know, I was always, my chest, my heart, you know, I was always getting chest pains, short of breath, weakness.
At the time of his marriage, David is one of 50,000 people in the U.S. who needs a heart transplant.
A heart transplant is used in about 2,000 to 2,500 patients per year in this country. The lucky few that get transplants have a terrific result compared to what they would have otherwise.
David, a 31-year-old cafeteria worker from Lubbock, Texas, is put on a transplant waiting list, but he knows the math is against him. That the odds of surviving until a donor heart is found are slim. He doesn't think he will live to his next birthday. In the past, with no alternatives to keep them alive until a transplant became available, many patients, like David Lancaster, got progressively worse and died. Recognizing the need to buy time for their patients, medical pioneers began working on mechanical devices that can sustain a patient's life until a new heart can be implanted. One of those pioneers is Dr. Denton Cooley, who in 1968 successfully performed the first human heart transplant in the U.S. A year after that historic operation, a patient by the name of Haskell Karp becomes one of Cooley's patients. Karp needs a transplant, but he begins to rapidly fail before a donor is found. With his patient dying, Cooley decides to implant an experimental mechanical heart that thus far has only been tried on animals. His hope is to buy Karp some time while the search for a donor continues. Without government approval for his device, Cooley rushes Karp to the operating room, where Karp's failing heart is removed and replaced with a fist-sized plastic and metal device that has never been tested on humans. It relies on a large external power console for its operation. The console generates precisely timed pulses of air, which are sent through tubes in Karp's chest to the mechanical heart inside. To live, Karp must remain attached to the console as it operates the valves in his new heart. It is the first time anyone has ever survived on a mechanical heart. The device keeps Karp alive for 3 days, long enough for a donor to be found and a transplant to take place. But a day after the transplant, weakened further by his new ordeal, Haskell Karp dies.
This was strictly an emergency situation, and that's been my purpose all along, was to save Mr. Karp's life. And I failed, but I let the record show that we tried.
After Haskell Karp's death, 13 years pass before the next patient gets an artificial heart. This next time it is Barney Clark, a 61-year-old retired dentist from Seattle who will make medical history. Faced with imminent death, Clark agrees to have his ailing heart removed and a plastic and metal device invented by Dr. Robert Jarvik implanted in his chest. This new device, called the Jarvik 7, is not meant to keep Clark alive long enough for a transplant, as was the case with Haskell Karp. This new machine is meant to be a permanent replacement for Barney Clark's own heart.
When we took him to the operating room, and he barely could move, you know, I mean, he was so weak, and put him on the table, and I remember he was not that responsive after that, and I thought maybe we'd waited too long.
Clark survives the 7.5-hour surgery. His old heart is now gone, replaced by a man-made device. Alongside his bed is a noisy refrigerator-sized power unit that keeps the heart going and Clark alive. For Clark, it is the new sound of life.
What does it feel like to have an artificial heart in the chest? Do you have pain, or is it uncomfortable?
Not at all. It's comfortable. The only thing you get used to is, I imagine, is pump.
The noise of the pump?
But you get used to that.
The months are filled with highs and lows for Barney Clark. He is able to stand and do light exercise, but he's always tethered to the power unit by the tubes protruding from his chest. They are literally his lifelines. On March 23, 1983, 112 days after he'd received his implant, Barney Clark dies. A year later, Dr. DeVries implants an improved version of the Jarvik 7 into 52-year-old William Schrader. It is a major breakthrough in the development of the artificial heart. Not only is it a smaller, lighter device, but it does not have to be connected to a noisy pump.
All through. The operation's all through.
Last 2 days now, picked up and eating, doing real good, and I feel super.
For the first 18 days on Jarvik's new machine, Schrader lives a life Clark was never able to attain. He gets out of bed, exercises, sips a beer, and even goes to a ball game. Surgeon William DeVries sees Schrader's progress as a sign to push ahead with the artificial heart. However, other patients who undergo the operation die soon after. Meanwhile, the initial euphoria of Schrader's remarkable recovery begins to be marred by frequent sickness and strokes. Then, on August 6, 1984, William Schrader loses his battle. He had lived 620 days, longer than any other person with a man-made heart. Schrader's struggles raise new questions about the cost and efficiency of the new device. Until they are resolved, the federal government orders its use restricted.
We couldn't make the jump from nothing to everything in one step. And there were enough complications at that time, enough difficulties, so that it was not socially acceptable.
No one would ever again implant an artificial heart. Instead, Jarvik and others focus on perfecting an assist device to help heart patients survive long enough to receive a transplant. The new device would not replace a patient's existing heart. It would be a small unit attached to a sick heart to help it do its pumping. The new device is called a bridge to transplant. It is the idea that Denton Cooley tried with Haskell Karp in 1969.
It allowed us to really save a patient's life and not have to deal with the need for long-term support and the patient needing to have this tether to this equipment the rest of their life.
In May of 2000, David Lancaster enters Houston's Texas Heart Institute. Luck is on his side. He has been chosen to be part of a clinical trial to further test the new Jarvik 2000 assist device. It will be his bridge to transplant. It will buy him the time he needs. Unlike the big noisy machines of the past, this heart device is small, no bigger than a spool of thread.
It's completely silent. They don't feel it. They can wear a battery that just weighs a couple of pounds, and they can be freely mobile and normal in life.
Lancaster stays on this small device for more than a month before a donor heart is found. And as he waits, he finds that his health returns.
even though I had the Jarvik, I was able to walk without really huffing and puffing, and felt so good.
On August 4th, David Lancaster finally gets the new heart for which he has been waiting. But before he leaves to go home, there's one remaining procedure to go through. The bell ringing has become a joyous tradition for every successful heart transplant patient at the Texas Heart Institute.
It blows me away to think of a little device like that, have my heart do what it's supposed to do. It is unique. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's awesome.
Since the late 1960s, the use of transplants and artificial hearts has stirred ethical debates about the role medicine should play in defining the line between life and death.
In the past, people believed that life ended when the heart stopped beating. And some people believe that doctors who perform transplants are playing God.
Up next, the twisted history of barbed wire.
Don't go away. Be right back.
Casablanca premiered in New York City's Hollywood Theater 58 years ago this week. Based on an unpublished play and produced on a limited budget, Casablanca still managed to win 3 Oscars the following year for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Screenplay. It has also become one of the best-loved movies ever made and has left us with some memorable lines. Do you know the last line in Casablanca? The answer when we return.
My company is the designated K&R consultant.
What is K&R?
Kidnap and ransom.
At any time, a hostage can be taken and hidden anywhere in the world.
Your husband isn't dead. He's alive. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure he gets home safe.
Now, it's one man's job to find them.
So we're on then. Absolutely.
Meg Ryan.
Why are you doing this?
Russell Crowe.
I told you you'd have to trust me. You said you could.
Proof of Life. Rated R. Starts Friday, December 8th.
Introducing the Wind Tunnel Bagless by Hoover. It picks up more dirt than any other bagless upright. Wind tunnel technology for clean, bagless for convenience. And with the powered hand tool, it's more than just easy. It's also quite powerful. Perhaps the world's best vacuum.
Business is an art. Whether you're in a service business, or maybe a family business, even a fun-in-the-sun business, you've got to look a breed apart. Now there's a printer that's smart and fast. Xerox inkjet printers. At $149, they're just a smarter breed of inkjet printers. Because sooner or later, everyone's got to take care of business. Now available everywhere.
Tomorrow on the History Channel, Lawbreakers takes a chilling look at Bonnie and Clyde and other murderers on the run. Then a special preview of History Channel International, when How Did They Build That brings you the history of amazing iron and steel construction. It all begins tomorrow night at 8 on the History Channel. Explore the extraordinary history of America's house, the White House 200th anniversary. Monday night at 10 on the History Channel. Next on the History Channel, encounter the spirits of Elvis Presley, Bugsy Siegel, and other apparitions who refuse to leave even after death.
I felt something pushing itself through the top of my head.
Ghostly Tales of Nevada on Haunted History. Next on the History Channel.
Speed, reliability, performance, the qualities that won Lance Armstrong the Tour de France. Now, they're available in international delivery. Introducing Global Express Guaranteed from the U.S. Postal Service and DHL. Delivery to over 200 countries in as little as 2 days guaranteed. Now, you'll know which team to ride with.
Fly like an eagle.
We now return to This Week in History.
Casablanca premiered 58 years ago this week and has left us with many memorable lines. Do you know the last line in Casablanca?
Of all the gin joints in the world.
At least we had Paris.
Getting on that plane, Alice.
Here's looking at you, kid.
Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow.
This is the beginning of a long...
Something wonderful.
Louis, I think this is the start of a beautiful friendship.
Welcome back, everyone. One of the darkest chapters in American criminal history came to a close 6 years ago this week. On November 28, 1994, serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer was beaten to death by a fellow inmate at the Columbia Correctional Institution in Wisconsin. 3 years earlier, he was convicted of the brutal murders of 17 people. Most of his victims were young men, who he used as sexual partners before drugging and murdering them. The nation was riveted and horrified by the grisly details of Dahmer's killings, which often included cooking and eating his victims. At the time of his murder, Dahmer was in the midst of serving 15 consecutive life sentences.
Moving on now to a story of invention. Native Americans and cattlemen sometimes referred to it as devil's rope because it kept livestock from roaming free and occasionally wounded animals that tried to break through. I am talking, of course, about barbed wire, which was first patented this week in 1874. And as we're about to see, this simple invention led to some complex conflicts.
It's the mid-1800s, and pioneer families searching for the American dream are heading westward. Farmers are attracted by the cheap and fertile land. But once there, they discover a problem. There's no easy way to protect their crops from the herds of livestock that roam freely across the range.
There wasn't anything out here to build a fence out of. You know, it's pretty hard to build a fence out of wood when you don't have any wood to do it with.
The farmers try using wire, but the cattle just charge right through. That is, until Joseph Glidden, a farmer from DeKalb, Illinois, comes up with a solution. He takes a piece of smooth wire and attaches short, pointy barbs to it. He strings that wire and another between a tree and a grindstone and cranks the handle, twisting the two pieces together. The result is barbed wire, a strong, sharp fence that the cattle can't break through. His invention is such a success, he's awarded a patent for it on November 24th, 1874. But competition is hot on his heels. Dozens of other farmers start experimenting with barbs, including Glidden's neighbor, Jacob Haish, who files for a patent shortly after Glidden. Haish doesn't take kindly to being beaten to the patent office. Claiming he's the true inventor, he goes to court to prove it. Their legal battle lasts 18 years until the U.S. Supreme Court rules in Glidden's favor. But the judges couldn't resolve a different kind of battle happening outside the courtroom, pitting neighbor against neighbor. Fence wars break out between the cattlemen and the farmers. The cattlemen want to keep the open range policy, but the farmers insist on fencing. Hired guns, including the infamous Billy the Kid, often do the dirty work. Burning houses, snipping wire, and in some cases even committing murder. Eventually, the farmers are victorious, and barbed wire crisscrosses the plains. Today, there's even a barbed wire capital of the world, La Crosse, Kansas, home of the Barbed Wire Museum and annual Barbed Wire Convention. Each year, collectors gather to haggle, trade, sell, and admire thousands of wire samples. They're even modeling the latest barbed wire fashions.
There are over 2,000 pieces of wire out there, several thousand patents. Each one is different, and to look at it, each wire twist is different, each wrap is different, maybe the barb is different.
Barbed wires also become a worldwide symbol of oppression. Its first military use came in the Boer War in 1899. It has thread across battlefields, enclosed concentration camps, and divided Cold War Berlin. For better or worse, Joseph Glidden's invention has changed the boundaries and battlefields of the 20th century. An amazing legacy for a farmer from Illinois.
In addition to the annual convention in Kansas, there are at least 8 other barbed wire conventions held each year throughout the U.S.
All right, when we return, Jack Ruby's friend gives us fresh insights on the killing of Lee Harvey Oswald.
Stay with us. 71 years ago this week, Commander Richard Byrd and his crew became the first to fly over the South Pole. It was the largest and most expensive polar expedition ever mounted and included 2 ships, 3 planes, 82 men, and 94 sled dogs. Do you know the estimated cost of Byrd's expedition? Was it $200,000, $400,000, $1 million, or $2 million? The answer when we return.
It beat the S&P 500 for 1 year, for 3 years, and over the life of the fund. The Strong Growth and Income Fund. Call 1-888-2-STRONG. You're one call away from a strong portfolio.
He might have a heart that's 2 sizes too small, but you can't blame the Grinch for wanting them all. This holiday, make your own little Who's their favorite eats. Kellogg's Rice Krispies Holiday Treats, now with red and green ornaments and trees.
The unexpected XJ8 from $56,950.
See the biggest, the boldest, and the most unique structures on the planet. How did they build that? A special preview from History Channel International, tomorrow night at 9 on the History Channel. Sunday on the History Channel.
I am your predator.
To some, they are brutal thrill seekers.
I get that rush.
Others justify them as a necessary evil.
Open the door, now!
Bounty hunters stalk their prey on suicide missions. Sunday night at 8 on the History Channel, where the past comes alive. Sunday on the History Channel. It was thought to be safe, strong, and secure. But in 1942, plans for its defense proved flawed as the not-so-impregnable Gazala was crushed. The result, a devastating British military blunder. Sunday night at 9 on the History Channel. History's Lost and Found auction block. Your chance to buy a piece of history. Submit your bids online at ebay.com/history or historychannel.com. And watch weeknights at 7.
If you've had previous credit problems, buying a car can seem like a red light that never changes. That's why Hillsborough Chrysler Plymouth and Jeep offers a unique program called New Start Financing. We guarantee to offer you financing regardless of your credit history. Payments are as low as $89 a month. So whether you've suffered through a job loss, repossessions, or even bankruptcy, we'll give you the green light to a new car at Hillsborough Chrysler Plymouth and Jeep. We guarantee to offer you financing. Call now.
AT&T.
Sports.
It seems so simple. Put the ball in the hoop. Whoever does it the most wins. But have you ever tried an inside-out crossover? How about a reverse pivot and spin move? Or hitting a 23-footer with the game on the line? Simple? Anything but.
NBA League Pass is in demand on AT&T Digital Cable. Get up to 40 games a week, all for one low price.
We now return to This Week in History.
Commander Richard Byrd's pioneering expedition to fly over the South Pole cost an estimated $400,000, which would be roughly $4 million today. Byrd offset the cost of the expedition with sponsorship. For a $60,000 contribution, the New York Times received exclusive rights to news and photographs of the expedition. For his support, John D. Rockefeller had a mountain range named in his honor. Welcome back to This Week in History. Our next story concerns a born hustler. In addition to running a Dallas nightclub, he also hawked a variety of gadgets and products, including pizza ovens, anti-arthritis treatments, and liquid vitamins. But this week in 1963, Jack Ruby became forever known as the assassin of an assassin.
November 24th, 1963. Police begin transferring Lee Harvey Oswald, President Kennedy's accused assassin, from Dallas Police Headquarters. Suddenly, a man in a dark suit lunges forward and fires a fatal shot. As police grapple with him, he shouts, "I'm Jack Ruby, you all know me." In fact, most of America had never heard of him. But one man knew him well, Tony Zoppi, seen here with his good friend, Jack Ruby. Zoppi, a friend for 10 years, can help explain why Ruby assassinated the assassin. Ruby, born Jacob Rubenstein, grows up in a poor, tough neighborhood of Chicago. The 8th grade dropout becomes a tough street fighter who hustled for a buck. In 1947, Ruby moves to Dallas to run a nightclub for his sister. 6 years later, he meets Tony Zoppi. As the entertainment columnist for the Dallas Morning News, Zoppi reviews acts that play at various nightclubs Ruby manages, including his striptease club, the Carousel.
Jack was comparable to the people that I grew up around on the Jersey Shore. He was just a street guy. He'd come to my office, and he had a very shrill laugh. And he'd start to talk, and the next thing you know, his laugh is going up to the ceiling. And the people in my office would say, "How do you tolerate him?" And I said, "Because he's like a letter from home."
Ruby is generous with his friends, but also has a frightening side.
Jack Ruby had a hair-trigger temper. He could explode at the drop of a hat, and I saw him do it. And yet he would come down as fast as he went up. The minute the incident was over, he was back to normal.
Ruby hungers to be respected and known. He befriends policemen and reporters, and boasts of connections to the underworld. At his club, Ruby serves as his own bouncer. He often carries a gun that he bought to protect the cash receipts he deposits daily. Months before Kennedy is assassinated, Ruby begins making calls to people associated with the mob. Later, people will argue that these show he was part of a conspiracy to kill the president. Zoppi is skeptical.
I think Jack Ruby would be the last guy in the world the mob would hire. He was just too unpredictable, and he talked too much. And I don't think that was the kind of people they were looking for.
Zoppi's theory is that Ruby had another reason for making the calls to unsavory characters. Rival striptease clubs are undercutting him by using free amateur talent. Ruby is looking for help to force them to stop. He is badly in debt and rapidly losing money. Now Ruby, already under tremendous pressure, is about to suffer another blow. Friday, November 22nd. At 12:30 p.m., President Kennedy is shot. Just 6 blocks from Ruby's club. Ruby is devastated.
Jack Kennedy represented the epitome of class. And Jack always, that was his favorite word, class. I've got a classy joint. I wear classy clothes. Everything was equated by class. And he looked up to the president and Mrs. Kennedy. And when the president was shot, he took it very personally.
Ruby closes his club as a gesture of respect to the president. He tells many friends that he is distraught. It's hard to understand how a complete nothing could have done this, he tells one of them. Sunday, November 24th. The police plan to transfer Oswald from their headquarters to the Dallas County Jail at 10 in the morning. Shortly after 10, one of Ruby's strippers calls him at home and asks him to wire her money. Ruby drives down to the Western Union, a block away from police headquarters.
He went into the Western Union, which is across the street, and he transacted his business, came out, he was in there for maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and looked down the street and saw this huge crowd. And being Jack Ruby, he had to be where the action was.
The crowd is still waiting for Oswald to be transferred. Unknown to Ruby, the police plans have been delayed. As the Warren Commission later established, Ruby walks the length of a football field from the Western Union to police headquarters.
The timing was unbelievable, because if he had had another cup of coffee at home, he would have missed the whole thing.
The ramp leading to the garage is guarded by policemen. Yet Ruby manages to get through. In his pocket is the gun that he regularly carries. He arrives just seconds before Oswald emerges.
Jack was coming from the ramp in this direction. Oswald was coming from that direction, and they met here. And that's when Jack lunged and shot him. He's been shot. He's been shot. Hey, Oswald has been shot. And they jumped on him, and he kept yelling, "Hey, guys, I'm Jack Ruby. I'm Jack Ruby." And he couldn't understand why they were wrestling him to the ground.
Not long after, Ruby tells the policeman, "I hope I killed the SOB. It will save you guys a lot of trouble."
He thought he was going to be a hero, a folk hero, and it didn't work out that way.
3 days later, Ruby makes a call to Zoppi from jail.
He called me from his jail cell, and I said, "Jack, why the hell did you do it?" And he started to cry. And he says, "I didn't want Jackie to come down here and stand trial against that commie rat."
Ruby said he wanted to protect Jackie Kennedy. But Zoppi sees a more straightforward explanation. A devastated and misguided Ruby simply lost control.
I think he acted off the top of his head, like his temper was that way. He had been grieving for 2 days. And Oswald had a smirk, which everybody resented. When he'd come through the hallway, he would look at us like we were dirt. And this irritated Jack. He didn't like the way he looked. He had a sardonic smile on his face. And he stepped out and shot him.
On March 14th, 1964, Jack Ruby is convicted of murder. He dies of cancer 3 years later. Who was the man who shouted, "I'm Jack Ruby, you all know me"? Now we all know. A troubled man who was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
In a strange twist of fate, Jack Ruby, Lee Harvey Oswald, and John Kennedy all died in the exact same location, Dallas's Parkland Hospital.
When we return, we'll tell you about the CIA's Psychic Warriors.
And don't forget to visit our HistoryChannel.com to cast your vote in our poll on handgun control. We'll bring you the results when we return.
Next, the ghost of Elvis and other spirits in Las Vegas on Haunted History.
Ask a financial advisor about Sun America, the retirement specialist.
Now get the Wall Street Journal delivered for 13 weeks at just 57 cents a day, a 25% savings. Call now, 800-758-7722. That's 800-758-7722 for the Wall Street Journal.
I will never ask, what do you plan to do with your life?
I will never talk about the things you haven't accomplished.
I'll never bring up the time you came home smelling like that other dog.
I will never worry about where we're going.
As long as you roll down that window so I can pretend I'm flying.
No relationship is like the one with your dog. No dog food is like Purina One brand. And it's made with real meat. No corners cut, complete in every way. For the health and happiness of your dog. Purina One, how great relationships are fed.
It was an enormous gamble. If caught, they'd be put to death.
Making a revolution is a messy business.
Yet these legends were as human as anyone.
Hamilton had the first sex scandal.
John Adams would have needed Prozac.
The amount of alcohol consumed was staggering.
And they managed to pull off the impossible.
How they do it is an incredible story.
A world premiere miniseries, Founding Fathers. All next week at 9 on the History Channel.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Could I get a glass of water, please?
Oh, sure.
Anything else?
Now that you mention it, I could use a little more leg room.
American Airlines is the only airline removing seats throughout coach to give more coach passengers
How's that?
what they really want, more room.
Good.
Enjoy more room, only on American.
Excuse me.
After several hours of intense negotiations between the two leaders, an agreement has been signed. They should be appearing any second to toast this momentous occasion.
Bob, get in there. Number 2, get on that waiter. We've got a problem. Everybody get in there. Move, move, move.
Vladimir and I are pleased to announce the signing of a very powerful agreement. We can look forward to a future.
This would never happen in my country. Never happen.
Sorry, sir, the champagne was not Corbel.
Corbel, for people who know champagne.
Can you tell the difference between these contact lenses? They're the same brand, same prescription, but this lens cost 50% less and was delivered right to my home. That's the Lens Express difference.
Save on brand name contacts, daily wear, extended wear, disposables, and others.
I wouldn't trust these baby blues to just anyone. Call Lens Express. They're terrific.
Now you can replace your contacts and save. Call for a free Lens Express catalog.
We now return to This Week in History.
Here are the results of tonight's website poll.
Welcome back, everyone, to This Week in History. This week in 1938, 26-year-old Chicago White Sox pitcher Monty Stratton suffered what appeared to be a career-ending injury when he accidentally shot himself in the leg while hunting. His leg was amputated the next day. However, in one of the most inspiring stories in the history of sports, Stratton taught himself to pitch on his artificial leg, and he fought his way back into professional baseball. He posted an astonishing 18-8 record in the East Texas League in 1946. Stratton's story was later turned into a popular movie starring Jimmy Stewart. Now let's check what else was going on this week in sports.
This week in 1890, two armed forces begin a bitter conflict that will last for over 100 years and perhaps never end. I'm talking about the very first Army-Navy football game. Navy routs Army 24-0 in this first epic battle. Over the next century, presidents from Teddy Roosevelt to John Kennedy to Bill Clinton attend the Army-Navy games. The two teams meet again next week, with Army leading the series 48-45. This week in 1895, 6 cars start their engines for the first automobile race in the United States, a 54-mile run from Chicago to Evanston. 3 of the cars are built by Benza, the forerunner of Mercedes-Benz. 10 grueling hours after the start, the race is won by a motorized car built by the Duryea brothers, who collect the $2,000 prize. The average speed? Just 5 miles per hour. And 20 years ago this week, Roberto Duran utters one of the shortest but most famous lines in the history of boxing. No mas, no mas, which in Spanish means no more. With those 2 words, Duran concedes the WBC welterweight title to 24-year-old Sugar Ray Leonard. Duran had captured the title from Leonard just 6 months earlier. But on this night, Sugar Ray controls the fight until Duran can take no more, throws in the towel in the 8th round. And that's what happened this week in sports.
Sugar Ray Leonard retired just 2 years after the Duran fight at the age of 26 after he suffered a partially detached retina during a bout in 1982. He came out of retirement and bumped up a weight class to defeat Marvelous Marvin Hagler, claiming the middleweight crown in 1987.
All right, do you believe in extrasensory perception? Well, apparently the U.S. government did and spent quite a bit of money to employ psychic spies.
Dionne Warwick not playing a role. Let's find out more in tonight's edition of Would You Believe?
This week in 1995, the public first learned of a most unusual government program, codenamed Stargate. Would you believe that for 20 years, the U.S. government employed psychics for espionage? The Stargate program began in the 1970s, and it's estimated that $20 million was spent on the ESP spying operations. Various security organizations, such as the Defense Department and the CIA, used the psychics for what was called remote viewing. Remote viewers used their extrasensory powers to provide hidden information, such as the location of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi and the location of plutonium in North Korea. One remote viewer claims he exactly predicted where Skylab was going to fall months before it returned to Earth. He also said that he helped locate Brigadier General James Dozier, who was being held hostage by the Red Brigade's terrorist group in Padua, Italy. The program was slowly phased out, despite the fact that independent research estimated that the psychics were accurate 15% of the time.
One former psychic of the Stargate program, David Morehouse, wrote a book about his experiences titled Psychic Warrior.
And among his missions, Morehouse claims he used remote viewing to help track down the terrorists who blew up Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland.
Back in September, we aired a Would You Believe story on Nikita Khrushchev's 1959 visit to the United States, in which he was barred from visiting Disneyland for security reasons, but did manage to tour the 20th Century Fox movie studio.
And apparently, during that luncheon at Fox, Spiros Skouras, who was the head of the studio, made a toast in which he said, quote, "I was a poor boy from Greece herding sheep. I came to America with nothing. Now I'm the head of 20th Century Fox."
To which Khrushchev replied, "I was a poor boy from the Ukraine digging coal. I came to Moscow with nothing, and now I am the head of the Soviet Union."
Now, we thought this was an interesting exchange, but we recently received a letter from Skouras' son, Plato, who attended that lunch. He believes that Khrushchev's comment was a put-down of his father and of the American capitalist system.
He writes, "The segment surprised and upset me for seeking to glorify Nikita's put-down of Skouras. 41 years have passed, and Skouras' belief in our nation's free enterprise system has prevailed, while Nikita's prediction that the communists would bury the free world proved to be wrong. I believe to glorify Nikita in any manner whatsoever is very harmful."
He also added a P.S., quote, "My father told me that the real reason Nikita wasn't allowed to visit Disneyland was because Walt Disney objected and refused to let him in."
Well, as we've seen, one week holds an amazing wealth of history. Jack Ruby killed Lee Harvey Oswald, the Coconut Grove nightclub burned, barbed wire received a patent, and a new artificial heart got pumping.
Be sure to join us next week when Christie's holds its very first auction. The Mars Pathfinder is launched. A new theory emerges on one of the great mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle, and we'll hear from two men who were trapped inside a capsized battleship during the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
All this and much more next week on This Week in History.
Good night.
Next on the History Channel, encounter the spirits of Elvis Presley, Bugsy Siegel, and other apparitions who refuse to leave even after death.
I felt something pushing itself through the top of my head.
Ghostly Tales of Nevada on Haunted History. Next on the History Channel.
Go to extremes to afford a great car. Not at Oldsmobile's Zero to Pay Drive Away, 0 down plus 0 payments, and 0 interest for 1 full year for qualified buyers on the Fun to Drive Alero. That's right, absolutely 0 to pay for 1 entire year on every 2000 and 2001 Oldsmobile. Limitations apply. Call for details. Drop everything.
Through the windshield. Because of my seatbelt, I survived. You wear your seatbelt, and I hear that click or that engine does not start.
It all comes down to a matter of survival.
A message from the Washington Traffic Safety Commission.
What if you had a gift that lets you see into the mind of a killer? A gift that puts you in great danger. Would you still consider it a gift?
Court TV invites you to join profiler Dr. Samantha Waters and her team of forensic experts as she brings the FBI's most elusive killers to justice. Profiler, Mind Over Murder. Weeknights at 8, only on Court TV.